You've heard about GMOs for what, decades now, right? The arguments, the labels, the whole debate. Well, get ready because that story is diving into a brand new and honestly a pretty high stakes chapter. Let's break down what's really going on with the future of our food. So, here's the big question we're tackling. Are these so-called new GMOs the big breakthrough we've been hoping for? We're going to unpack the science, the promises, and, the hidden legal battles that are shaping what actually ends up on your plate. Is this a real leap forward, or are we just watching history repeat itself? Okay, so to really get where we're going, we've got to first understand where we've been. Let's rewind and take a look at that first generation of GMOs and the incredible vision that was sold to all of us. So what are we even talking about when we say GMO? The official definition is pretty straightforward. It's any living thing whose genes have been tinkered with in a lab in a way that just wouldn't happen out in a field. Simple enough? But that little definition is the foundation for, everything that comes next. And man, the promises were huge. We were told this tech was going to solve world hunger, that farmers could finally use way fewer pesticides, and that really it was just a faster, better, supercharged version of the plant breeding that humans have been doing for thousands of years. It sounded amazing, right?
But the reality, it turned out to be a lot more complicated. Those big promises didn't always line up with what was actually happening on the ground.
Okay, so take plants that were engineered to make their own bug killer, like Bt cotton. The idea was brilliant. Kill the pests without having to spray chemicals. But here's the thing about nature. It adapts. When you blast an insect population with the exact same poison 24/7, the few bugs that are naturally resistant, they survive. They breed. And pretty soon, you've got a whole new generation of super pests. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at this graph. It shows how many insect species have become resistant to these engineered crops over time. See that black line? It's just shooting straight up. The technology that was supposed to be the solution, it actually ended up creating an even bigger problem. And that brings us to today. Enter the next wave, new genomic techniques, or NTGs. The folks behind them say, hold on, this time it's different. This is GMO 2.0. We've worked out all the kinks. That definition probably sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? It's still genetic modification that doesn't happen in nature. The key difference, they say, is the tool set. We're talking about things like CRISPR. Think less of a genetic sledgehammer and more like a pair of tiny, super precise genetic scissors. It's faster and supposedly much more targeted. And with these new tools come, you guessed it, a whole new set of promises. We're talking highly targeted changes, often without adding any foreign DNA from another species. And sound familiar? We're again being promised less pesticide use, but with a new twist, crops that can fight climate change. It all sounds fantastic, for sure. But you have to ask yourself, does the evidence actually back up all this hype? Is this new promise any more real than the last one? And here it is, our first major reality check. The very first NTG plants that have been greenlit for import into Europe are a plant that's tolerant to an herbicide and another one that produces its own insecticide. The exact same traits as the old GMOs that caused all those problems in the first place. This doesn't really look like a revolution, it just looks like a reboot. I mean, we have literally seen this movie before. This chart shows what happened in the US when they rolled out crops that were tolerant to the herbicide glyphosate. Did farmers use less of it? Nope. Its use went through the roof. The technology didn't reduce our reliance on chemicals, it actually locked it in. But what about that core argument that these new techniques are just so much more precise? Well, as this quote points out, being precise isn't the same thing as being safe. You can make one very precise little snip to a single gene, but there is no way to predict all the ripple effects that one tiny change will have in a living, breathing, complex organism. Biology just doesn't work like a simple machine. But look, this story isn't just about the science. Not even close. To really get what's at stake here, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the piece of the puzzle that often gets ignored: patents. This is honestly the best way I've ever heard it explained. Imagine somebody gets a patent on the idea of a blue dog. With that patent, they can actually forbid their neighbor from owning a blue dog, even if that neighbor's dog just happened to be born blue all on its own. That's what a patent on a genetic trait does. It gives ownership of the trait itself, no matter how it got there. And this is not just some hypothetical. It has had devastating, real-world consequences. Let me tell you about Percy Schmeiser, a farmer in Canada. His canola fields got accidentally contaminated by a neighbor's patented GMO seeds. The company literally sent private investigators, found their patented gene in his crops, and then sued him. And you know what? They won. He was found guilty of using their property even though he never wanted it in the first place.
And that wasn't a one-off thing. A French seed breeder was threatened with a massive lawsuit by a competitor that held a patent on aphid resistance in lettuce, a trait the French company had developed all on their own through traditional breeding. Just the threat of a lawsuit was enough to force them to pay up.
So all of this, the science, the patents, the lawsuits, it's all leading us to this massive crossroads. Because right now, there's a huge push to completely deregulate these new NTGs, to basically treat them as if they're no different than any other plant. So what would that actually mean? Well, let's look. The current system for the old GMOs requires a mandatory risk evaluation, a public way to detect them, clear labels for you and me, and monitoring after they hit the market. The proposal for these new technologies? Get rid of all of it. No required safety checks, no way to trace them, no labels, and no follow-up. Just gone. The fear here, the big one, is that this toxic combination of patents and deregulation will lead to a massive consolidation of power. A handful of giant corporations could end up controlling the seeds, and if you control the seeds, you control the entire food chain. Farmers lose their independence, and the rest of us, we lose choice. I just want to leave you with this really sobering quote. It's from an American agriculture official way back in 2006. He said, "The people who will gain the most will be the testing laboratories and attorneys. In a world dominated by patented seeds, who really profits?" That's the question we're all left with as we try to figure out the future of what's on our plates.